Welcome to Weapons Grade Radio. Weapons Grade Radio. Weapons Grade Radio.
Due to mature subject matter, viewer discretion is advised. This show's got some big old balls on it.
Yes, indeed. Oh my! And we say big old balls on it in a relative term, meaning hypothetically, as a figure of speech, because this hopefully podcast is for everybody: women, men, black, white, aqua maroon, as they would say in my favorite rap tunes. This is a special episode of Weapons Grade Radio, and I'm giving it a little bit of an intro, and hopefully my guest host or co-host, Will Ackerman, will be okay with this. And something he says during the podcast that I'm about to play. Number one, this is a podcast that has to do with Patriot Prayer. Patriot Prayer is a group that has formed in order to, and from what they say, protect freedom of speech. It's also kind of like an answer to Antifa. Antifa, in my opinion, is one of the biggest adversaries to free speech and to freedom of thinking that you could possibly imagine that is actually happening in our country today. One of the biggest reasons that we're going to do this interview, so basically this whole episode right now that I'm about to play is going to be about an interview, or it is an interview with Joey Gibson, who's the founder of Patriot Prayer. There's other people who founded it with him, and there's many different people who are the main key speakers of Patriot Prayer. One of the most interesting things about Patriot Prayer is they've been called a white nationalist hate group, which is hilarious because most of the members were actually people of color. I guess there's only one white man who is one of their speakers, and the rest of them are all people of color. One of the speakers is transgender. One of the speakers is a woman and all of color, and I don't even know why I have to go into this or make up excuses as to why they're not what they've been called or labeled, but they're, in my opinion, it should just be common sense, common knowledge, just from actually doing homework and listening to this man talk, that they're not what they've been labeled. I don't know why it's not common sense or common knowledge, period, with anybody who would even look into this situation or scenario. Antifa confronted Patriot Prayer at a rally that they did in downtown Portland a few weeks ago. The thing that disturbs me the most about the entire situation is the way that some of the Portland newspapers reported on it. I'm looking at the Portland Mercury, and the Portland Mercury actually came out with this story that they put online not 4 to 7 hours after the event happened. If you watch the video of the event, it is clear that no matter what Patriot Prayer stands for and so they have the name Patriot and Prayer in their name. So apparently that makes them a white nationalist hate group, although it was founded by a Japanese American man, people of color, and it's made up of all different people, nationalities, races, and colors. So they held a rally on the waterfront in downtown Portland. Guess who shows up? Antifa. They're supposedly anti-fascist, yet they wear masks, they carry baseball bats and sticks and balloons filled with piss and shit that they throw at protesters or people who are literally... So it's funny, I don't even know why I have to explain this so clearly because there's a lot of the public out there that just doesn't seem to understand. But the Patriot Prayer people had permits. The founder, Joey Gibson, got up and actually made a speech that you can watch on a video about how we need to be about love. We need to engage these people in conversation. Please don't hit them. Please don't throw punches. Please don't throw out insults while they, of course, insult you and commit every kind of assault on the books that is illegal, which the police, by the way, did nothing to stop or interfere with, and they made no arrests the entire day. While on video, on multiple videos, on multiple angles, you can see the Antifa people literally charge the Patriot Prayer crowd. And I'm not rah for Patriot Prayer. Actually, I do want to stick up for what they stand for, because I understand exactly what they're coming from. Now that I have interviewed the man, I am incredibly impressed, and I can hear the genuineness in his voice, and I can look at this situation with common sense, and I don't understand how other people cannot. I don't get it. But you can see the Antifa people charge at the crowd of Patriot Prayer people who are literally just peacefully marching down the waterfront. Maybe they're chanting something. So what? That's your right as an American fucking citizen, is freedom of speech, freedom of protest, as long as you do it in the appropriate way, which is what Patriot Prayer was doing. So they had their permits, they had their rally. Suddenly Antifa shows up, and they knew they were coming. Antifa had this plan, you can tell. And they charged the crowd, and you could see them running from hundreds of yards away. And the first thing that happens is one of them jumps up, the Antifa idiot, little fucking piece of shit coward, jumps up and tries to drop kick one of the Patriot Prayer people. And that's what started off the entire day full of violence. At one point, there was a kid with a skateboard who was swinging it wildly, trying to hit people with a skateboard, which is a literal deadly weapon. Did he get arrested? Did the police step in at that point and say, no, you're going to kill somebody and you're not? If I walked up to someone on the street and smacked them in the head with a skateboard, there would be an all points bulletin out trying to find me and put me in jail. This person who was swinging a skateboard at innocent people in no way, shape, or form was arrested or was punished in any way. Why? Why is that? Back up. You can see somebody from Antifa dropkick the people from Patriot Prayer. You can see violence. You can see bear mace. Antifa literally sprayed the crowd of Patriot Prayer people with bear mace. And I'm not taking sides. Well, I am taking the Patriot Prayer side. That's just the obvious fucking thing. But if I didn't know the two crowds at all, and I had no idea what was going on, I would see one crowd with masks on, Antifa, with deadly weapons, Antifa, with bear mace, which is made for fucking macing bears, Antifa, macing the entire crowd of protesters. The entire crowd got maced with bear mace at random. And none of the Antifa people got arrested. The Portland Mercury, and I'm calling them out personally, the Portland Mercury put out a blog on Blogtown, Fights on the Waterfront. This is the title of the blog they put out hours after this whole thing happened. Fights on the Waterfront, photos, videos from Sunday's right-wing rally and left-wing protest. So they're trying to say that Antifa was somehow a protest, even though they literally charged at the Patriot Prayer crowd, and the Antifa literally engaged in assault as soon as they came onto the scene. And I'll tell you what, if I see one of those little mass shits running up to me, trying to beat up on me or beat up on one of my fellow citizens for expressing and enacting my right to freedom and protest and free speech, I would want to react. I would want to beat the hell out of that guy, and I'd want to protect myself and protect my fellow citizens, especially the innocent people that had nothing to do with any violence whatsoever. And Antifa wants that to happen. So I hope you listen to this interview. I hope that you don't read the Portland Mercury. I've been reading that paper since I moved to Portland. I love the fact that I can find out all the shows that are going on all over the place. I like the fact that it's free and it's artistic. But when I read right-wing marchers and left-wing protesters had a dumb clash on the waterfront Sunday afternoon, with pepper spray and punches flying, a handful of people got bloodied up. Nearly everybody got called the Nazi. No shit, Portland Mercury. By who? Who was calling people Nazi? So I would appreciate it if the Portland Mercury and also the Oregonian would not leave pertinent information out that's so obvious that you could find on the internet, that they would blame the people who perpetrated the violence for the violence. And this here is actually an interview that Will Ackerman, my co-host, and I did not too long ago, a couple of days ago, with the founder of Patriot Prayer. His name is Joey Gibson, and it is incredibly eye-opening and telling interview. He actually talked to us for almost an hour and a half about everything, from Patriot Prayer, how they got started, how he feels, and what they're really all about. So if you want to know what Patriot Prayer is all about, open your ears, listen to this interview. Welcome to the show, and I really appreciate you for listening, and I appreciate the fact that you want to hear the truth. So now I'm going to go ahead and play the interview with Joey Gibson of Patriot Prayer. And also, real quick, I want to apologize for the low-tech version of this interview. I had to do it. I'm new at this. I had to actually put a microphone up to the phone. We had to speak into the phone, the speakerphone or whatever, while recording it with a microphone. So the quality of the recording is really bad, but the interview is amazing. I did the best I could to make it sound as good as I could, and hopefully we can all get past the fact that it's kind of low-tech recording. But anyways, on to the interview with Patriot Prayer and Joey Gibson. All right, we have another episode of Weapons Grade Radio.
Yep.
And we are very happy and excited, blessed, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
From whatever walk of life you are, whatever race you are, whatever nationality you are, whatever religion you are, to have this guest on our show. We in no way, shape, or form advocating any kind of racism whatsoever. We have nothing to do with any Nazi groups, and it's even insulting for me to kind of even.
We shouldn't even be doing this.
I shouldn't even be standing here saying
virtue signaling. This is just virtue signaling for the right.
Right, virtue signaling, which is a new term that I just learned. But
we have the moral high ground. There's no need to apologize or try to
absolutely
compensate for what we aren't.
Absolutely. I just feel like for those who are ignorant enough to just label anyone they feel like, because of their skin color,
correct,
or what they look like, or what social or economic background they come from.
It's really ideological differences that drives this narrative.
Ideological. And we also apologize for the sound quality.
It's
bad. I apologize for the sound quality because we have to do this extremely low tech today. Our guest could not do a Skype interview, so we're going to do it with microphones next to a speakerphone on a phone. So, Joey, we're very happy to have you on the show. I am honored to have you on the show. Appreciate you being here. So does Will. I've
met you before, man. I was at the last rally you did downtown. I said hi to you a couple times, but it was kind of chaotic.
And then for those who aren't around this area or whatever, we come from Portland, Oregon. There was a rally that was done with Patriot Prayer, or by Patriot Prayer, a couple of weeks ago. And it ended up being chaotic.
Violent. A lot of pepper spray, a lot of mace.
A lot of assault.
Yeah.
And, the thing, Joey, that really struck me the most is when I read the Portland Mercury, I believe.
Yeah, that was the first article to come out. It was like 7 hours old at that point, and it was just kind of a smear job against all the people that organized the event.
Correct.
And they give way too much credence and credit to the opposition that basically was there to cause violence.
And I said nothing. The thing is, I literally saw nothing about Antifa or Antifa's actions in that report. All I saw, the main gist of it was Patriot Prayer, white nationalists show up, and all hell breaks loose, and a bunch of people got assaulted.
So what's your perspective on what happened that day?
If you would just give us your perspective, what happened, how did it start?
August 6th, 2 p.m. on the waterfront, we show up, and, we're not expecting too much violence. We're expecting a little bit. We have about 200 people there. Out of nowhere, we look, I'm doing an interview, so a lot of people are kind of looking at me, asking me questions, so the tension's kind of off. People look down the distance, and there's a row of about, 10, 12 Antifa members with their face covered running from like a mile away. They didn't plan very well because a mile away is like a long way to run, and they're all locked arms. Like they plan this out, and they're like, let's intimidate them. And they come running up, and then eventually all of them kind of stay behind because they got scared, and one guy continued running forward and tried to drop kick one of us and totally missed. And basically that was foreshadowing for the whole day. It was like everything we did, they just came running up and they would start punching us. They would start hitting us. There was so much violence on their part.
Right.
And I'll be honest, like in the past, like June 30th, our own people made mistakes and were too aggressive and would throw the first punch, and I've been working on that and trying to explain to them, like, that's not okay. You don't hit people for their speech, okay? But August 6th, it was totally on them, man. They just wanted the violence. They desired it. I don't know what was going on in their heads.
They were rabid, man. Just rabid.
Oh my goodness, yes. They sat around, planned this forever, and they were excited. And that's the thing that kind of bugs me is like they were excited for us to show up. It wasn't like they were like, no, we need to stop these guys from showing up. It was more like, oh, we're so excited they're going to show up in our town. We're gonna like make a name for ourselves. We're gonna make ourselves famous. It had nothing to do with keeping Nazis out of their town. It was about looking cool. It was about making a name for themselves. You know what I mean? That's the thing that bugs me.
It wasn't a standard like deplatforming approach. It was like, yeah, they showed up, let's kick their ass. That's just a very childish way to deal with it.
Right, and one of the most interesting parts about that is that the Mercury made it completely look like it was you guys are a white nationalist and you were looking for a fight.
That's the narrative that people constantly use against us. And it's interesting, like when you read these articles, they say that we show up to these liberal areas, and I don't want to say liberal, it's just these areas that are intolerant. We show up to provoke a fight. And it's funny because they use the word provoke, because provoke means you don't throw the first punch, but at the end of the day, we don't show up like cussing and yelling and like, doing everything we can to get them to throw the first punch. No, we just show up talking about freedom and God and love, like
how dare you?
Our existence provokes them. That's what they mean by provoke.
It's ideological differences that lead to this kind of in attempt for them to basically try to have a conversation with us when all we're trying to do is dialogue and open people's eyes to what's really going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, we have these people that try to latch on to what we're doing, and they will show up and they'll cuss, they'll yell. And there's tons of people, like, it's weird. I have these people who pretend like they're on the same page with me and Patriot Prayer and some of these other people. And it's just fake. Like, they just show up. They just want the platform. Same thing with Antifa. They just want the platform. They just want to be known. They just want, like, it's just so weird. Like, there's so many people just reaching for something right now. And a lot of it has to do with attention. A lot of it has to do with just being part of something that people are paying attention to.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about, there was an identitarian guy there that basically tried to dialogue with me, and I basically told him that I wasn't really down with Identity Yoruba or any of the stuff that they were preaching. And he was very friendly and very nice, but that's kind of their job. They're sent out there to try to recruit people. And it's not always necessarily for nefarious purposes, but I think that their presence there lends a negative light to what you're trying to do, which is a message of peace, actual tolerance, and dialogue, and of course, preaching the message of Jesus Christ. But I found it kind of perturbing that he was there, and then you had, I mean, on average, most of the Proud Boys that were there weren't necessarily starting fights, but a couple of them got pretty aggressive.
Absolutely, and it's all about getting better, about the Proud. Let me talk about the Proud Boys for a second. It's about improving. It's about getting better. It's about them understanding the message. If they don't support me and they don't support my message, then they don't have to be there. You know what I mean? And for the most part, I will tell you this much. The Proud Boys in Washington, Northern Washington, they love the message. They love what I'm doing, and they support me 100%. But it's about getting away from just having fun, which is kind of the instinct, right, for all of us. It's not about having fun. It's not about provoking these social justice warriors. It's about standing up for our country. It's about standing up for free speech. You know what I mean? It's about standing for something that's so much bigger than just having fun. And the Proud Boys are going through that evolution right now up here in the Northwest. Like they love like being good people and having other people freak out. You know what I mean? If they're if they're rude and they're assholes and other people freak out, then it doesn't really mean anything, right? It's almost like they deserve it. And so, but in terms of the Identity Europa and these other groups that are trying to latch on, they're trying to divide us. They want to, because they're so extreme that they don't want me to build bridges with moderate liberals. And so that's their way of showing up, trying to divide us, trying to make everyone freak out, because they want a left versus right war. That's the only way that they feel like that people like me or other people will team up with them.
Well, it's the easiest way to tear apart our nation. It's the easiest part to get the people, literally, we, the people who make this nation, this great nation up, to tear each other apart while the sharks in the waters circle our country waiting for the kill, in my opinion. You know, when I first talked to you yesterday and we were speaking about this interview, you said something that really struck me, and it came from your heart, and that I appreciate the most. But you talked about how you feel about the left and about liberals, right? And how you feel about the right. But what you said about the liberals is that, you know, there are people, it doesn't matter. Like, if you're on the left, if you're on the right. I myself personally feel like I'm a fence sitter. I think that's my new term for it, because I don't subscribe to any particular ideology from any side, period. But at the same time, I respect, you know, like, from what you were saying, the liberal side of it or the left side of it, there are people who don't like the Antifa movement as well. But they're afraid to say anything, because as soon as they say something, they're going to be labeled a Nazi or a racist or some horrific thing like that, which is like one of the greatest tactics I think I've ever seen used. Is people are so afraid of being labeled something so heinous and so horrible that they're like, no, I'll go along with what you guys are saying. I'll go along with you want. How dare I be called a Nazi or a racist? Can you tell me how you feel, though, about the left and the liberal side as well as the right?
Probably I've evolved a lot in the last year. So many things I've learned. So many things. Like, my life has changed in so many ways. But one of the ways that I've learned that I've grown and evolved more than anything, is how much I've learned about the so-called liberal, the so-called left. Forever, I really, I'm a libertarian / I'm a constitutionalist.
Right.
And a lot of people naturally want to put me on the right,
Right.
But the more I learn about the left, the more I learn about the actual moderate liberal, the more I understand that I'm just in the middle.
Right.
And there's a lot of people on the left, a lot of liberals who hate social justice warriors. They hate political correctness. You know what I mean? And they love free speech, and they love these things that we're doing. They love the rallies and snap, but they're too afraid to show up, and they're too afraid to speak out against it because they don't want to be called racist. The left is so afraid of being called racist. They're so afraid of being called Nazis. And that is how the extreme left has dominated the Liberal Party,
right,
the Democratic Party. That's how they dominate it.
Right.
Yeah, you're talking about
left.
Classical liberalism, like a Thomas Jefferson type liberal that basically is kind of
not even that much.
No, not that much.
Classical liberals are like libertarians now. You know what I mean?
I agree with that.
I'm talking about just moderate liberals. Liberals who, might want healthcare, might want like higher taxes, this and that and everything. Socially, they believe in certain things. They're for gay marriage, all this stuff. But when it comes down to free speech, they're all for free speech. They're all for it. And they hate the social justice warriors. And this has been done on purpose. They've purposely made the 10%, the extremists in the Liberal Party, they've purposely made them the loudest to make everyone think that's the norm on the left. But it's not true. Because most liberals that have reached out to me that I talk to, they are not afraid of different ideas. They're just afraid of being called names.
Right.
So, that's how they're sensitive.
Well, take the guy at Evergreen. What do you think of the teacher that was basically a very much leftist liberal mentality, but yet he was told you got to leave the campus. He basically said, well, no, there's a difference between you yourselves leaving and making a show of force in the sense that here's what your campus looks like without people of color. But it's a totally different story when people of color tell people they perceive as being the opposite, which would be Caucasian, to leave the campus by force. That seemed to me like a total reversal of what any modern leftist would consider, not beyond the pale, essentially. And I think that kind of woke a lot of people up, especially in the area of Olympia alone, because they took over the whole campus. It was pure anarchy.
perfect example. So he's a Bernie supporter, like we're talking about. He's not just moderate liberal. He's a little bit even more left than that. But he believes in free speech. He's against racism. He's against true racism, which if you're against racism, that means that you're not allowed to kick people off of campus based off of their skin color. Like that's logic. You know what I mean?
Right.
So this guy, this professor, he believes in logic. He's against racism, and he's one of the few liberals that actually stood up. That actually stood against these social justice warriors. And I will tell you, Evergreen State College, I don't know if you know this or not, but we went up there, we protested, we talked to a lot of students.
Yeah.
These students who are running the college, who are running rampant, running around with bats, they don't represent the majority of the college. That college is like 90% liberal, but 10% of the school were the loudest, and they're running around pretty much running the school, and everyone was too afraid to speak out against them.
And they had baseball
and that's really
bats.
a good example.
Yeah, they're running around literally with shows of force. Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Literally. Yeah.
And, what really baffles me is how people don't understand or see how this is like literally the beginning of a new type of fascism or Nazi movement or whatever. If somebody comes up to me with a weapon and threatens me and threatens my safety because I don't agree with their ideology or I have anything to do that is against their ideology whatsoever, they're going to beat me up. They're going to hurt me. They're going to hurt my family. They're going to destroy my personal property. I don't know how. I just don't understand how the general public right now doesn't see that as a complete threat to any kind of freedom or free speech or whatever. Period. It's like the biggest form of fascism, in my opinion, in the country today, and it's like frightening as hell because not only is it happening, but now the liberal media or the media itself is like covering for the entire movement. Like they're not reporting anything. Like the thing that happened over in Portland, that whole rally. Will came here directly after that, and I saw video, and I got to find out exactly really what happened. But then he also sent me a couple of links to some of the stories that were put out about that, and it said nothing about the Antifa. It said nothing about the kid hitting people in the face with skateboards. It said nothing about any of the bear mace that they were using on innocent people who were just marching. And so it's not only the threat of violence that if you don't believe what I believe, then I'm going to hurt you. But it's also the threat of this liberal media and whatnot, and whoever's behind that pushing it into existence.
Campaigns,
Yeah,
ruining
exactly.
people's lives. I mean, I watched the video of those two women, the Don't Shoot Portland activists, whatever, Mimi or whatever, just basically on a vendetta against you to get you fired. And you kept telling her you called the wrong place, and she wouldn't listen. She's like, well, I'm going to get all you fired. I mean, that's satanic, if you want my personal opinion.
Yeah, it's also it's economic terrorism as well as physical terrorism.
Okay, so a couple things about like Mimi. So what people don't understand, I mean, there's a lot of things I can say about what you just said, but to start off on Mimi, she literally, like, she's making some bad moves, and I'm telling you, like, if there's, I've had quite a bit of an impact in Portland lately. A lot of people would say it's positive, some people would say it's negative, but I will tell you one thing: the liberals are starting to turn on Antifa because they finally see a group of people. Who cares who they vote for? Who cares what they stand for? They finally see, consistently 150 to 200 people who will stand against Antifa no matter how much they try to threaten them, no matter how much they try to use threats of violence, no matter how much they use actual violence. And they try to dox me. They try to put out my address, all this stuff. But we will continue to go up there and stand against them, and liberals are starting to turn against them. Mimi just did a speech. You should look it up about a week ago. They had their little red flag rally. There's probably 10 or 12 of them.
Saw it.
And Mimi went up there and did a speech, and she said, I have a message for liberals. I am sick and tired of you liberals from your high houses telling us that we should stop fighting the fascists, that we should listen to what Joey Gibson has to say. And the whole crowd was like, F Joey Gibson. Like, they had to tell him about them. Right. But the truth is she went ahead after that and said, if any of you liberals work with Joey or whatever, I'm going to go after your job. She basically, her technique is to use threats, to use fear, to try to control Portland. And I think in the past that would work because no one ever stood up to him. No one. There's no group. Nobody. They would threaten someone and they would just bow down and be like,
and that
okay.
was Airliner.
And
that was Airliner World, who's African American, taking that video, and she even turned and looked to him during that clip. Because by the way, I'm a fiend for these videos. My wife hates me. She always gets mad at me because I'm sitting on my phone probably 3 hours a day.
I get in trouble a lot too.
Yeah. And she turns to him and is like, we're gonna get you fired. We're gonna drag your name through the mud. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but
Well, how can normal people sitting at home, and I'm not going to call anybody any names. I'm not going to say anything derogatory, but how can you sit there and watch people threaten other people with physical violence, with getting fired, with economic violence, with all sorts of stuff, if they don't fall into their specific line of thinking, and not think that that's the new neo-Nazi fascist movement? I actually saw some, I was looking at Facebook or whatever, and a few of them, one of the posts or whatever said, well, they're called Antifa, so they're anti-fascist, of course, right? Because their title says anti-fascist, they're supposedly anti-fascist, and it's the biggest, in my opinion.
Call yourself that doesn't mean anything.
Correct. Just like calling Trump the so-called president. And I'm not trying to get on, a Trump parade or anything, but I thought the same thing. You're calling Trump a so-called president. He actually is the president of the United States. But Antifa, in my opinion, yeah, they hide behind threats, they hide behind violence, and the American public hopefully will wake up to the fact that we have literally a domestic terrorist organization, in my opinion, literally working from within the country. But who's behind them is my biggest question. Like, what's pushing them?
Well, yeah, they're getting tons of funding, but at the end of the day, it does matter. But at the end of the day, that's not what matters as much as having faith in Portland, having faith in the average liberal that will finally say, we've had enough. They can say, Joey, I will never vote for the same person you will, but I respect the fact that you're talking about love, you're talking about peace, and I will not support Antifa. I will not stay silent. I will not let them harass our citizens. The mayor needs to stand up. The city council needs to, everyone in Portland needs to stand up and say, this isn't us siding with Joey. This is us siding with what's right. We do not support Antifa. We do not support their violence. I mean, and that's and the liberals are starting to turn on them. And you know what? Those liberals, because I have faith in the moderate liberals. I believe that most people in Portland, I believe that 90% of people in Portland are good people, but they're letting the 10%, the hateful, the social justice warriors, the people who are the loudest, they're letting them be the voice for Portland, and they're giving Portland a bad name. I'm saying no, Portland, you stand against these hateful. 90% is a lot bigger than these 10% hateful people.
Absolutely.
And if everyone stands together,
right, and like
together,
you're saying,
stand against them.
Yeah, and they're just the loudest. They're the ones that are willing to go out. They probably have nothing else to lose. In my opinion, they're full of hate, but they're also full of fear. Like, they're afraid of the modern economic system. They're afraid of being able to have to make a life for themselves in our system. And they have tons of hate and anger. And there's a lot of things, of course, we won't go into politic-wise that are happening in our country that need to change. But at the same time, they're taking it out, in my opinion, on the average public in the absolute wrong way. And like I said, anyone who's going to put a mask on and threaten my physical body or my property because I have a difference of opinion is in 100%.
That's terrorism. That's political violence.
Correct.
I think that you look at by any means necessary. I mean, obviously, Yvette Falarca, she was on Tucker Carlson, and basically he kind of trolled her in the sense that he was like, "What are you going to do? Beat him up? What are you going to do when you meet a real fascist, or what you perceive as a fascist?" But it sounds like they run their organization like a cult. They're indoctrinating 12-year-old kids in some cases, and then not letting them leave. Yeah. And go see their families. And that, to me, is going to be the quickest wake-up call, is people from the inside coming out saying, listen, I was attacked for having a differing... I mean, I've heard of infighting on Antifa.
Well, I've seen it on videos
many
too.
times.
A lot of infighting. Absolutely. Yelling at each other. And even over, like, which direction should the whole herd, walk down the street. Let's go left. Fuck you. I want to go right. Don't tell me what to do.
Or should we block the street? Or shouldn't we block the street? Should we stay on the sidewalk and obey the police orders? Or should we, get in front of cars and start assaulting their windshields? I mean, that's something that has to be kind of agreed upon by at least a contingent. And sometimes they just cause a bunch of infighting and piss on each other's shoes, and it becomes a total disaster for them.
Right. But, the biggest issue to me, and I think we all agree on that, is that the media literally leaving out anything that has to do with any Antifa violence whatsoever. And the newest term that I've never even heard before in the last, I heard it the first time in the last couple of months, which is white nationalist. We are not white nationalists. I don't even know what the hell that is. I've never been associated with any group that has anything to do with that, and I know you're the same way. And when I listened to your speech that you gave before the rally on Sunday, You said the complete opposite. You said what you're saying to me right now. This needs to be about love. If they, don't throw punches, don't throw insults, that only gives them more of ammo against us. And I can't tell you how much I respect that. So obviously, it's obvious that you guys aren't racist to me, in my opinion. You have nothing to do with any kind of Nazi organization whatsoever, and neither do we. So you're coming up here. You guys are going to be heading to San Francisco. I think there's a certain politician that has been doing everything that she can to make sure that you guys aren't able to do that. And can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah.
If you're comfortable, sorry.
Let's just be honest. Nancy Pelosi isn't the smartest person in the world. She's not very good at strategy. What Nancy Pelosi does is she does what she's told to do. She does what the elites tell her to do. She pretty much just put herself in the worst situation ever. Let's talk about strategy. She went out and she tried to pull a permit. Okay, number one, that's going to increase the size of a rally, right? Number two, she said that we're white supremacists. We have 3 rap artists from the Bay Area that are black that are going to be there speaking. Every single person that is speaking is a minority except for one white male speaker. Everyone else is black, Hispanic, Asian. We have one white female speaker, and we have a transsexual speaking. Okay, so that's going to go against her. Next thing, if there's any violence at all, okay, protesters commit any violence, how much legally and morally does that go back on her? Because she went out and said this is a white supremacist rally, and we have so much evidence to prove otherwise. Not only are our speakers, not white, but like how far back can we go since the beginning of my career of speaking out about all this stuff? Can they find one sentence, one word, not only that is not racist, but that is not hateful? They can't even say that I have hate speech. I'm promoting peace and love 100% of the time. She has no strategy, she has no intelligence, and she doesn't care about her community, because not only is there trash all over in San Francisco, but she literally went out of her way to spread a lie, and it's going to increase the chances of violence, not only for citizens, but for the police officers.
Yes.
The police officers that have to be down there to protect us, to protect the citizens. She made it so much more dangerous for these people who are willing to put their lives on the line to keep us safe.
I agree.
That's number one, man. I mean, whenever I go to a rally and you're there, or another, pro-patriot group is there, I've only ever seen love for the police, and they've always been polite to us for the most part. And of course, that triggers Antifa to say, well, the police, cops and Klan, hand in hand.
Pigs in a blanket, fight like bacon.
Well, that's a really hateful one. That's a BLM
that's
chant.
horrible.
That's a Black Lives Matter
Oh,
one.
okay.
But I've heard the cops and Klan hand in hand, and ACAB, all cops are bastards. They don't realize, because I watched the footage from Lake O, and I was actually there, but I got there late. But the clip of Luis, you know who I'm talking about. He was burning a flag with his friend with a ski mask on, and the cops encircled them. And then they were basically calling for someone that tried to grab the flag before they burned it to be arrested. And it's like, you guys are being protected by the very same guys you are calling literal fascist protectors. But you have to understand, this is Lake Oswego. Most of these cops are probably left or middle center, leaning. And I just think it's ridiculous for them to alienate themselves further and then try to use the police against us when we're basically just trying to march or trying to wave flags without being intimidated and harassed and grabbed. But I did watch your guys' Seattle rally while it was happening. I thought you guys did a really good job letting everyone have a platform, and I think that really shocked a lot of the people on the ground. I think they were freaking nonplussed by the fact that you gave the microphone over to basically people that hated you. I remember that one woman who's just like, I don't even know why you guys are up here speaking. Fuck Patriot Prayer. Fuck these guys. And she just made herself look like an idiot.
Which is brilliant. No, it's absolutely brilliant. And that's your whole point, is we want freedom of speech, and we want difference of opinions. That's what America's created on. That's what's the beauty behind it, is all these different cultures and different religions and different mentalities coming into this one little melting pot. But to have one organization that wants to run around, like I said, with masks on, beating people up because they have a difference of opinion, or they want to march, or they want to rally, or whatever, is got to stop. It's horrible. And the police, the funny thing you guys were just bringing up just now, is the police absolutely do protect them. while they're calling out, we're calling them names and calling out for them to die and all that other kind of horseshit. So you guys will be in San Francisco coming up here. Is that going to work out for you, or is Nancy Pelosi going to get her way politically? Because she does have a pretty strong political hold on that area.
She thinks she does, but at the end of the day, she doesn't. She has no pull over the Constitution. She has no impact. She can't inspire. She can't motivate. She doesn't have anything. All she has is corruption. All she has is lies. All she has is just being a career politician that makes money off of the poor, makes money, make the middle class even more poor. That's all she has. What she has is darkness. It is evil. She has nothing over us. She can't. That's the thing. That's what's so beautiful about grassroots. And grassroots movements have been suppressed for so long. But I'm telling you, these establishment figures, they have nothing over us, because these people from the bottom, they're working their way up, not out of corruption, not out of their connections, not because they know some rich person. No, these people from the grassroots who are working their way up, they're doing it through their speech. They're doing it with their words, their inspiration, their motivation. And she has nothing over any of us. Will Johnson, all these people who come down there to speak, they can try, go ahead, pull a permit, we'll have 4,000 people there, even more, because our First Amendment is so important to America, including moderate liberals. It is so important. And she has nothing. All she's trying to do is make a name for herself, because she's up for re-election, and she knows that she's this close to getting voted out. She's this close. And I'm telling you, I cannot wait. I cannot wait to go down into San Francisco. Just like I went up to Seattle, I called out the mayor. I cannot wait to go down to San Francisco and talk to the people about fighting against the corruption in D.C. It doesn't matter if you're a Republican, a Democrat. It doesn't matter. Let's fight against the lies, the deception, the corruption, everything that Nancy Pelosi stands for. Let's fight against that. It doesn't. You can hate Trump. You can love Trump. That doesn't matter. But let's vote for people who actually care about their community. San Francisco will never be conservative. I don't care. But let's vote for people who are honest. Let's vote for people who care about the people. Let's go back to forget politics. Let's go back to the fundamental morals.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if she's any worse than Maxine Waters. I mean, she's literally being called the poverty pimp, by Omar Navarro and people like Sabo, which I love Sabo's street art. I think he's one of the most iconoclastic, cool people we have on our side right now, because he's just so raw and he's unapologetic. And of course, he's just a funny guy. You hear every interview I've seen on the street with him. He's like, or the interviewer will go, what are you doing here today, Sabo? He's like, I'm trying to get laid. And he's just, because he's not wearing like any Trump gear. He's just like, I'm here to get laid. And I just thought it was hilarious. But, just to briefly touch on Charlottesville, my opinion and my personal take on the whole thing is it was a giant honeypot. It was a staged event. There was a stand down. I mean, we know the background of Terry McAuliffe and the mayor Signer, or whatever however you pronounce his last name. But I heard eyewitness testimony that a woman saw people bumper to bumper buses in an alleyway. They have obfuscated the optics. And people with Black Lives Matter shirts and people with KKK shirts were getting off of the same buses and basically rallying kind of at the central point. And then all the buses left all in unison. Now, I can't corroborate that, but that sounds like something that would be done to essentially foment more racial tension and violence and divide and conquer tactics that have been used so often and so effectively by the left, because they always use projection. They paint the other side as what they truly are, which is racist, kind of manipulative, hateful people.
Homophobic, racist, manipulative, Nazi.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, bigots.
Like you were saying, Joey, when we were talking previously, you were saying it was a trap. Can you elaborate more on that?
Yeah, absolutely. It was 100% a trap. And I don't know who was in charge. I don't know. I'm not about conspiracies. What I do know is that there's every single movement in the history of this country. Okay, every single grassroots movement has been ruined by extremists within their own party. Okay, and this is exactly what happened down there in Charlottesville. They use the under the guise of unite the right. They bring in all these people who they don't think it's about white supremacy. They don't think it's about white nationalism. They think it's about uniting the right because the conservatives are freaking out right now. The right are freaking out, and they went there and under that guise. And there were so many people shipped in there. Whether they were real Nazis or not, that's not the point. The fact is there were so many, like, I seriously think every single Nazi in the country was shipped in there to make it look like some huge movement. All these KKK, all these white nationalists, everything.
Yeah,
And
I mean, David Duke was, to me, the smoking gun in regards to that. And, I mean, I'm not trying to get into the full-blown conspiracy stuff, but I do a lot of deep research when it comes to these kind of things that you can tell are being done to essentially foment extreme division. So what I saw was that this is the Tiki March was a repeat of the Svoboda Party in Ukraine with their blood and soil chants. But remember, at that time, they were dressed up like Antifa, and they were essentially being supported by people like Victoria Nuland, John McCain, and George Soros were specifically involved in the overthrow of Ukraine, handing it over to rebels, and then blaming Russia like they did after they lost this last year's election. But it was the same chance.
If you're a listener and you're listening, if you're a listener and you're listening to this and you're thinking conspiracy theory, you're thinking wacko, like, do your research. Look into Ukraine. Look at John McCain. Look at the establishment and our government and how much they were begging for a war against Russia before Trump.
Yeah,
look into that, and then you'll get the
story. I don't know if you've heard of a guy named Michael Rivero. He's pretty darn neutral when it comes to taking sides. He did go pro-Trump. He did get mad at Trump when the missile strike happened in Syria, but I'm not trying to divert the conversation.
Yeah.
And I did too. Trust me, I was mad. But
yeah.
The thing he really hammered home was when those tanks were being purchased. The scrap tanks, I believe Ukraine was purchasing them from not Bulgaria, but another Eastern Bloc country, and painting them in Russian colors. And the idea was they were going to assemble them on the border of Ukraine and Russia and say, look, Russia's invading. And he broke that story before they were able to basically fully initiate that plan. And so he basically put too many eyeballs on the what was about to occur and blew the lid off that. But it was very interesting to see the lengths that they'll go to set up a straw man and foment world war. I mean, we don't want to go to war with Russia. I don't know how you feel about our military capability, but Russia has, in many ways, far surpassed our ability in regards to specific technologies, in my opinion. I mean, obviously, the military is 50 years ahead of everybody.
That's beside the point.
Yeah.
That's besides the point. The point is we have people who want to go to war because they make money. Right. That's the point.
Yes, of course.
And so we don't have to go to war with Russia. There's no reason to. Like, we don't. They're not a threat right now. I understand, like, that's kind of political because that's why the establishment, the Republicans, the Democrats, they were begging for a war with Russia. That was the plan the whole time. That's what the whole thing is with Ukraine was. That's why we started that revolution, all that stuff, But that's that doesn't that's besides the point. But
sorry, go ahead.
At the end of the day, if you listen to these theories and you think about how crazy it is and you think about, like, there's no way this stuff happens, okay? You have to understand, you have to look up false flag attacks. These things have been happening since, like, forever. That's how Hitler got into power.
That's how Putin got into power,
false flag
too.
attack.
Yeah.
He burnt down his own buildings and blamed it on the enemy. That's how they gave him all the power. False flag came from the Navy, the ships. They would switch out their flags and they would put up, a different flag, and they would attack their own people. So that gave justification for your country to go to war. I mean, it's just common sense. Same thing at Charlottesville. Like, I believe in my heart, I know for a fact that they brought in a bunch of moderate Americans, moderate right-leaning Americans, and they put them in this situation to where it was just like they even if that guy did not run over people, right? Let's say that never happened.
Right.
They still attached all these rallies, all these freedom rallies going across this whole country. They attach them to white supremacists, Nazis, white nationalists, and that was done on purpose.
I saw a literal. So I have Reddit installed on my phone, and I frequent the Donald a lot because I just love the community on there. Anybody who's listening, please check out _Donald because they're really positive guys. They're They're very inclusive. I mean, there's Muslim Trump supporters on there. I mean, I've just seen people from all walks of life. But in any case, there was an update, one of the push notifications from Reddit, and it said the far right has 9 rallies planned for this week alone, and it referenced the Boston rally. And I think that Boston for Antifa was some of the worst optics they could have possibly fomented for themselves, by way of basically
After
making
the fact, you mean?
What's that?
You mean after the fact it was bad optics?
Well, just through
Like
the whole.
after the rally happened?
Well, both. I'd say during and after, because I mean, Fox News was recording live when that woman was she must have been 65 or so, holding that American flag, and Antifa that was walking past basically dragged her behind the flag, and she even went up and started talking smack to him, and the announcers were like, "This is exactly what we don't want to see. This is bad. You know, this is not what a protest is supposed to look like."
And the fact that they had to shit people out. They had to shit people out in the police vans. That looks really bad.
Yes.
For Antifa.
Yeah. And then there was also that incident with the 17-year-old boy that went to one of those Confederate monuments, you know, obviously he was dressed in full, you know, Confederate regalia. He had his rifle slung over his shoulder, but all he was doing was standing there with a Confederate flag, saluting, and being completely still and quiet. And I mean, the hate that was being spewed at him from all different sides, I mean, the vitriolic expressions, hate, anger, I mean, they were literally shaking as they confronted him. And he was totally calm. And luckily a cop came over, escorted him.
One police did something and stood in to protect somebody?
A police officer came in and escorted him away from the statue and just told the people there, he's like, "You want another Charlottesville to happen, don't you? You should be ashamed of yourselves." And then helped the kid.
What the cop said?
What's that?
Who said that?
The police officer said to the people who were harassing this young man, "You should be ashamed of yourselves. You just want another Charlottesville to happen." And then he escorted the kid out of there. But guess what? That kid just got kicked out of his high school before his senior year. And all he said on video was, "I just wanted to do this for my ancestors." He's like, "I had to stand up for my ancestors." That's all he said. That's all he said.
That's crazy. It's like that guy that worked in, I think, a Burger King or McDonald's in Berkeley.
Oh.
He got fired because he was there, and but let alone that I can't pronounce her name. That Asian lady that's the head of BAM.
Yvette Filarka.
Yes, she's allowed to go out there and incite riots to say it's okay to use violence against people who feel differently, but yet she still has her job. She even got arrested. But yet she can still teach at a middle school in Berkeley. But a man who showed up over at Charlottesville, who didn't commit any violence, who didn't do anything that was bad, he just showed up there. He gets fired.
Wow. You know, and there was actually a teacher in my son's high school. Of course, I'm not going to name the high school. I'm not going to name the teacher because that's not what this is really about. But he did the same thing. And my son would come home to me on a regular basis, both of them, and they would complain about this teacher who was literally shoving their ideology onto them, which is basically, you know, if you're a white male, you're doing something wrong. You owe people for that, and, you know, you're just a piece of scum on the earth, and you don't deserve to live. And this is a high school teacher.
Racist.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, the most interesting thing to me is that, you know, it's kind of like a husband that habitually cheats on his wife. He's going to accuse his wife of cheating on him. That's what happens when you have people who literally are full of hate. And it's literally, this is the new Nazi movement, which is what I'm trying to get through to the average listener. They say, well, it says Antifa, it says anti-fascist. Well, they are using fascist techniques in order to push their ideology on everybody. And if it's allowed, and if the media is able to spread it like a fucking cancer all over the country, then, you know, we're all in deep shit, because you better stop thinking for yourself, and you better start, you know.
Look at the people who've come out and supported Antifa as of right now. You've got Romney, you've got Tim Kaine, which, by the way, Tim Kaine's son is Antifa and was arrested for inciting a riot.
Really?
Oh yeah,
Oh, he's been
arrested. Woody Kaine, I believe his name is. He's been arrested multiple times now. The first time they let him go immediately because that was in Berkeley. The second time it was in that area, or at least in the Bay Area somewhere, and he actually did, I believe, resist arrest and possibly assault a police officer. So he went to jail for a couple weeks. Now, obviously, Tim Kaine still can pull his strings with the Dems in those areas, but the point is...
Can you imagine if one of Donald Trump's children did that?
Oh, my God.
All hell would break loose.
Oh,
yeah,
my goodness.
No, I couldn't imagine, actually. I couldn't even imagine the fallout.
I remember one of the only compliments Hillary ever gave Donald was, "You've got some amazing kids." You know, that was the only, and I think that was when she was prompted to do that, like say something nice about each other. And of course, they both were like, "God damn it!" But
yeah, I agree.
That was the question. That was the question. They're like, "Can you say one nice thing about your opponent?"
yeah.
He's like, she speaks very well. He's like, you got some great kids, and he does. He's got some amazing children, but you know, they've been raised to be amazing, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, they were given expectations of, you know, you're not going to get a ton of handouts. I mean, everyone cites, you know, the $1 million or what. It's a contentious number that he was given as a young adult.
Well, he built himself up from whatever he was given. Even if he was given a loan for $1 million, he could have lost that immediately. All the business deals he's ever done could either make him or completely ruin him. And he's made it somehow. So we're not on a pro-Trump agenda, but I don't in any way, shape, or form believe what is being propagated about the man. And at the same time, I don't really appreciate, you know, just because I didn't even vote for Trump in the election, but I'm sure if I showed up to one of these rallies, I would be labeled as a quote unquote Trump supporter, a Nazi, a racist, and a fascist. And I've never had anything to do with any of those sources. You know what I am? I love my fellow human being. I love freedom. I want freedom of speech. I want you to disagree with me, and I want it to be okay, because that's where we live. We live in a country where it's okay to disagree with each other. It's okay to have your, you know, whatever angle you come out from life. It's okay, and we're all going to learn how to live together. And that's how also, you know, they say it's the greatest country in the world, and my firm belief is because we have so many different people from so many different places on the planet, that we have all these mentalities, all these religions, and we're all in this big melting pot together, and it's iron sharpens iron. It means we all bounce stuff off, ideas off each other, and that's how some of the greatest ideas in the world come out of our country.
I saw an interview with Faith Goldie and Stefan Molyneux, which was a really good one coming out of Charlottesville, which, by the way, Faith Goldie's been fired now from the Rebel, or she left, or one of the two, but it sounds like it had to do with that event. It sounded like the whole thing was even a honeypot to the level where an independent organization like the Rebel would actually can someone over exposing some of the lies that were going on the ground level. But she made a really astute point, which I've never heard anybody else from the conservative standpoint say, which is that diverse culture on a local level fosters trust in the community. If you just have everybody looking the same, you know, I think part of the reason they lump, you know, these inner city minorities together in such tight-knit groups is because it's so much easier to hate and assault people that look like you, whereas you're kind of mystified the first time you meet someone, like, let's say from like Bangladesh or somewhere like in Borneo or something, and those people are very different cultures. They speak very different. Their mannerisms are different, and it kind of sets you not on edge, but kind of like it lets your guard down a little bit. Like, let's let this person kind of express themselves in a natural, culturally significant way, and then learn from that individual and be able to reciprocate with things that they may not know. I remember going to Christian camp when I was like 11 years old.
Yeah, I went to Christian camp too.
Awesome. Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, brownie points. No, just so you know. No, but there was actually a bunch of Japanese exchange students that were there, and it was part of a 3-part tour of America. And next they were going to Disneyland, which I thought was pretty great. But they were so cool. They were so eager to learn about. I mean, I taught them swear words, of course, because at the time, you know, I wanted to be rebellious, but they taught me words in Japanese, and I just thought it was such an awesome experience to, you know, all religion aside, the whole experience was great. I think they were great people, and if anything, you know, I took away from that the fact that it does not matter, you know, what you look like, where you're from. Everybody has something in common, which is we all want to learn from one another and share cultural experiences. That's why I think cultural appropriation and this myth of disrespecting culture by way of, you know, let's say I want to wear a sombrero and have a fiesta themed party. What the hell is wrong with that? I'm sure most Mexicans would be like, can I come? You know, I just read Milo's book, and he mentions there was a Kimono Wednesday being promoted by a museum. I'm sorry, I don't remember what city it was in, but when the SJWs in the area came and had a sit-in, the local Japanese residents actually lost their shit and basically said, what is your actual problem? We support this. We want people admonishing and reaching out to our culture.
How else are you going to actually learn about their culture unless you immerse yourself in it? Or you're able to use one of the aspects of their culture as it is. That's how we learn about each other. That's how we get along. That's how we.
Well, that's done on purpose. It's two different things. Like you're talking about too. Like number one, like they want everyone to focus on things you can't control. They want you to focus on your skin, your gender, your sexuality, whatever it may be. They want you to focus on those things because they want you to feel like a victim. But when it comes to like culture, like Mexican parties, the sombrero hats, all this stuff, they want to find that offensive because that's culture. The whole point is they don't want you to focus on things you can affect, things you can change. They want you to focus on your skin color. You're a victim because you're black. You're a victim because you're brown. You're a victim because of this and that. They don't want you to think about what's on the inside, who you are, how you can improve, how you can change yourself. Because at the end of the day, the elites, they just want you to be a victim, right? They don't want you to think about self-control, discipline, honesty, honor, all these things that really make you rise up. They don't want that. They want to hold you down. And that's why they don't respect culture, but they want to get rid of culture. They want all of us to be the same, right? That's why they try to get rid of they say that Chinese food is offensive. To say that. It's like, no. Chinese.
That's not real.
I love that shit.
You got to be kidding
food.
me. You're kidding, right?
It makes great food. It is not offensive. It's like, yes, Chinese food, they make such good food that we're going to give them their own label. Like, Chinese food is going to have, like, a label in Safeway. That's how good it is.
It's a wonderful cultural thing. Yeah, it's like I like Mexican food. I like Japanese food. I like sushi or whatever. That's insane. Yeah. That's so far-fetched. That's so crazy. And I love Mugu Gai Pan. I just wanted to say that.
Remember the two white women that supposedly stole tortilla techniques from the Mexicans and
we stole pizza
and we're gonna open a food cart in Portland, and they got so much hate online. Now, granted, they caved like any good white cis liberal would in the sense that they caved into the pressure because they were just getting trolled the whole time. That was basically how it was framed. But they made a mistake. They caved. They should have basically come back firing on all cylinders, saying, "Listen, we asked
use it to their advantage."
Yeah, exactly. Use the controversy. There's no such thing as bad publicity, man. If people are like, "Wow, if they went all the way to Mexico just to learn how to make a freaking tortilla, I want to try those burritos." You know what I'm saying? Like, that would drive me to go try their truck because I want to support their ability to freely express themselves and have an entrepreneurial spirit in business.
And
who cares what they're doing?
They were ostracized for going to Mexico to learn how to make Mexican food. My God. Yeah, I guess
don't act surprised.
Yeah,
that's the thing. That's the thing that I hope that Portland learns from Patriot Prayer, Seattle, all these little areas is that I've completely used their insanity to my advantage. Every single time they attack me, it's publicity. Everything they do, all it's done is help me. And the only reason why is because we don't stand down. All they do, everything they gamble on, every bet they make is that Patriot Prayer and these people who support Patriot Prayer will just stand down.
You're just going to quit.
But if you don't stand down and you keep doing what you believe in, you stand up for what you believe in, people love that. People respect that. You get publicity. People love the underdog. Like, that's what it's all about. But people don't like underdogs that quit, right? Mm-hmm. That's not every underdog quits. They love the underdogs that never quit and they keep going forward no matter what.
Right, and that's how your movement's going to build. Because I'm sure a lot of people have seen these videos, seen you guys try to do your rallies, seen all the hate and all the cursing and everybody surrounding your rally, and you can't even speak on a loud, on a PA system because so many people are screaming out, "Not to go home, not to go home." Yeah. I wonder if these people have even, literally, we have YouTube. It is an age of technology and information. You can't go online and see what a real fucking Nazi or neo-Nazi looks like. And they're saying, well, this is the Nazi movement, but it's in disguise. I'm sure we'll be labeled Nazis, right? Because, I'm even talking to you. And that's what I cannot stand. I'm against, and I will fight, period, till we get through this and we overcome it. You cannot label me. You cannot tell me not to think a certain way or to do something a certain way, because you will label me as something that I am not.
I think another really important part of being able to express ourselves freely and going out there and showing, putting truth to power is never apologize. Never apologize to, this was part of Milo's book. I'm kind of regurgitating it, but he basically says, as long as you're saying what's morally right and you're not preaching violence and you're not preaching hate, you should never, ever kowtow and basically, because because they expect you to apologize. They expect you. They dogpile, man. I get in so many Facebook arguments. I really shouldn't, because some of these people are beyond
It's
saving.
like fruitless, basically.
It's almost all fruitless, but at the same time, I will never stoop to their level, typically, with personal insults and attacks, and I will not apologize for voicing my opinion. I will say I'm sorry when I'm wrong and I missourced a story, which only happens every once in a while, but they act like, oh, boom, everything you say is wrong now. And of course, I'll post stuff from Breitbart or InfoWars, because usually they have the most thorough investigating on certain things. And immediately it's, oh, InfoWars, or, oh, Breitbart, oh, that's fake. And I'm like, you guys listen to literally Media Matters, David Brock propaganda by way of Share Blue and these trolls that act like they have the dominion over facts. And it's like, bullshit. You don't have a monopoly on truth. Truth is self-evident. And you've seen, even though Alex Jones, people like that are crazy on the microphone sometimes, he's been right like 80% of the time. I'm not going to give him full credit, but like, damn.
Which is pretty good statistics.
He has pretty good statistics.
For
Yeah.
media.
Sometimes he goes a little too far, for me.
But he also knows stuff that we're not he's not even supposed to talk about some of this stuff. Like, if you watch I keep telling everybody I know, if you want to get red pilled, or at least start dabbling in differing ideas, listen to his Joe Rogan podcast. Oh my God.
Yeah, you'll never be the same.
Let's put it this way.
Yeah.
Let's put it this way about Alex. Let's say he's wrong 95% of the time. It doesn't matter. The fact is, I believe that Alex Jones is saying what he thinks is real in that moment of time. Like, I believe that he's sincere, and that's the thing, is that, like, if you are sincere, if you're an honest person, it doesn't matter if you're wrong. None of that matters. Evil will come at you, and the only power that deception, evil, darkness has over you, if you're a good person, is to get you to quit. That's it.
I think that expression, the greatest lie the devil ever told was to tell you that he doesn't exist. I think that's more. And by the way, I'm not a very religious person, just off the cuff. I think that some of the most valuable quotes are from the religious perspective, because it doesn't matter what God you believe in or what immutable characteristics you have that make you ascribe to a certain faith. But at the end of the day, they do believe in God and the devil. These people, these Luciferians, these elites that torture and sexualize young children and try to normalize pedophilia, they're driven by a desire to defile what they think God has created in his own image. And the most satanic thing, Luciferian thing you can do is destroy a child, because a child is clean, pure, and that is what drives them, is to defile and erode pure, just unadulterated kindness and love and innocence. They hate it. It's repugnant to them, and the best way they can do that is by convincing people that they're the good ones. They're the ones that aren't, like, look at how many times in the last week people have been like, didn't you know the parties swapped in the 60s? All the Republicans are racist and all the Democrats are not now because we said so. And I'm like, no. There's a lot more to that than you actually understand. But on top of that, look at Robert Byrd. Where's the demands to pull down the statues of an actual self-admitted, confessed Grand Clegan KKK member? And all I ever do is post the picture of him kissing Hillary, then side note, with his robes on. And it's like, that picture was taken when he was about to die. It wasn't like that was from the 70s. Because they say, oh, he left the Klan in 43. No, he actually wrote a paper in like 76 where he said, we need the Klan more than ever now. We can't let the race mongrels run over this country. That was during the Black Panther era, so obviously that probably shocked him into trying to muster up the Klan again. And Bill Clinton's eulogy at his funeral was, well, he was just a country boy from the hills of West Virginia, and he was just doing what it took to get elected. So you have to hate black people to get elected in West Virginia? Give me a break.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah. Planned Parenthood too.
Correct.
Oh gosh.
Absolutely.
Margaret Sanger. We must destroy the Negro population.
They were literally, Planned Parenthood was literally started for genocide.
Eugenicist.
I mean, that's way worse. That's way worse. Yeah, eugenics. That's way worse. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, that's like, in my opinion, to start a corporation or organization to literally to stop the black population from existing in our country. Like, that's like,
a lot of people don't know.
But wait a minute, you're the Nazi. Wait a minute.
Yeah. Wait. I knew that there was an actual meeting. I think it was in the 30s, at the UN, where they seriously considered putting sterilants in poor communities' water to essentially quash the swell of, low-income births, because, the idea of sharecropping farming, in other third world countries was, well, we got to have a lot of kids to replace us so the farm survives and we survive if we don't have enough kids. And that mentality gets, carried over to the newly immigrated people to the United States. And so they're like, well, if they're poor and they're, of a color we don't like, let's just sterilize them. And I guess I'll end that with saying that Ma'afa 21, are you familiar with that documentary?
No.
Okay, so it's Ma'afa means, I think it's Swahili, but it means black suffering, and 21 means in the 21st century. It's a Christian documentary. It's put out, I forget his name. He's a really good guy. But everyone who's listening should go watch that movie. It's about an hour and a half long. It was shown to actually black members of Congress, and they left the room crying because it was so powerful. It shows direct quotes from Lothrop Stoddard and it's Margaret Sanger and Darwin's cousin, who started eugenics and bred himself out of existence. Their whole family on that side of the Darwin family is dead because they kept inbreeding to the point where they had so many mismatched chromosomes they all couldn't procreate because they were so mentally retarded. It was just really dark and really scary to think that they put these murder factories, I don't know how you feel about abortion, but murder factories is what I would call them, in the most poor, destitute areas, and then convince women there you have no other option. And then the darkest part is they sell the body parts and the organs through a complex way of writing them off. And basically what they do is they charge shipping for the body parts, but they charge exorbitant amounts for the body parts. I don't know if you saw that interview on Tucker Carlson with the woman who had left Planned Parenthood. She used to be a manager at one of the locations, and that was one of the most revealing interviews I've ever seen on national television. That was rough. It struck me as just so horrible.
That is definitely real. But wait. Are you advocating for justice? Are you advocating on the side of the African American in this country that
my God.
Oh my God, stop it. You're Nazis.
They should be allowed to procreate? Oh my gosh.
Right. So
it's unfortunate because there's over half of pregnancies are aborted in the black community, and it's not. I mean, it's just weird. Like, it's one thing to give women their rights. Okay, that we can talk about that, but that's a whole different thing. It's another thing to advocate for people to kill their babies. It's another thing to specifically target the ghetto neighborhoods. Put these abortion clinics in there. It's another thing to make money off. Like, it's crazy. It is insane.
It's almost
incomprehensible. And the thing, abortion's kind of. It's a complicated, thing. Like, it's easy for people to be insensitive and just be like, oh, let's just kill babies, or, oh, let's not allow abortions, But at the end of the day, no one really knows, like you don't know when life begins. I mean, a lot of people believe life begins at conception, and maybe it does. And I actually believe that's probably the safest argument you can have, right? Because no one really, like, people say, no, life begins at a different time. Okay, when? When?
Well, that's a big argument.
They say,
that'll take us down.
They say, 2 months.
Yeah, semantics.
Yeah, they say 60 days, and I'm like, okay, well, what about 59 days? Like, what happened from 59 to 60? But a lot of people now,
the heartbeat.
They believe that life begins. A lot of people who advocate abortion, they believe that life begins when it exits. That's it. Like, no, because if life can exist on its own, when it comes out, whether it be 6 months or 9 months, you can't say it's only alive because it leaves the womb. You know what I mean? But it's a complicated.
It is a complicated subject. Yeah, I'm sorry, we don't want to take you down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, I mean, I just would end with saying my wife's pregnant, and we've been working with a pregnancy center down in the town we live in. I won't mention the name, but the women are really great advocates. And I went and saw them at one of the fairs that was going on in Oregon, and they had a booth set up, and I thought they were really brave for selling bumper stickers and showing they had all the little models of how babies develop at different times, and I kind of gave them my 2 cents, but I will just end by saying that the law that just passed in Oregon is a travesty. I'm not going to get into it,
it's
but
pretty horrific. Yeah,
we're paying for everybody's abortions, including people who come here with no intention to contribute to society necessarily.
Yeah.
And look at the guy that they just let out of jail after there was an ICE detainer. The guy had been deported 20 times, and then he gets to run free like a bunny, hop through a 65-year-old woman's window, rape her, steal her car, and rape another girl, and then they go, well, I guess we'll learn from that experience. But it's like, well, we should have never got to that point. He was living on the street smoking meth. I mean, the guy was not a great guy.
We're not against liberals. We're not against...
not at all.
No, we're not against the left. Not
just
against the
certain
right.
policies.
Exactly.
Really.
And my opinion is that there's good ideas and bad ideas on the left, and there's good ideas and bad ideas on the right. And if we're not able to express those to each other,
we can't find middle ground. Never find middle ground.
We will not, and we won't be able to get past it. We won't be able to grow as a culture.
So this is what's really going on in Portland. This is the real story. So there's these neighborhood associations that are being taken over by Antifa, anarchist communists, right? And they are passing neighborhood laws that supersede city council laws or rules or whatever. Code. Yes. So, like, for example, the police are allowed to do homeless sweeps if they choose to be. That's the rule. And it was controversial because, you know, people don't like, you know, a lot of people make a big deal. And, you know, you remember all that homeless were along the river, along the railroad tracks?
Yeah.
They went in there and cleared it out. So after that, in Monteville neighborhood, which got taken over by communist Antifa anarchists, they got the majority and they started passing these crazy rules. Number one is that the police are not allowed to come in and to do a homeless sweep, which whether that's right or wrong, it doesn't matter. Number two, they have Antifa roaming the streets to protect the neighborhood from racist crimes, which, I'm sorry, don't even exist. So they literally have people on Black Bloc with their faces covered roaming the street. That's the neighborhood association rules. That's what's going on right now.
That's really happening. That's almost like the religious police over in Saudi Arabia. Like, you know, they make the rules, and if you break them, you get beat up.
There's also that reminds me of, that's a direct parallel of the Sharia neighborhood police that are going on in like Dearborn, Michigan. They're sending out, ironically, it was like this ginger white dude that converted to Islam, because apparently there's this thing with, you know, gingers feel oppressed or marginalized, so maybe it's all because of South Park.
I got two of them, so I'll check. Exactly. I got two gingers and two sons, so I'll see if they feel oppressed.
Exactly.
But they've taken it to the next step, though. They've taken over the whole city, the police. That's what these Antifa are trying to do, the anarchists, because they look at liberals as just pushovers. They feel like they can stomp all over the liberals in Portland because they're so afraid of them. They're so afraid of the threats, so afraid of the name calling.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, if the liberals do not stand up in Portland, before they know it, their city council, everything will be taken over. And, like, it will literally be illegal to be white in Portland. It'll be illegal to just walk around. You know what I mean? Like
kissing your girlfriend on the waterfront will be considered a hate crime.
Well, yeah, eating Chinese food. Yeah, I totally agree with you, and that's why I'm doing this podcast, and that's why I chose to have an interview with you. I don't care what anybody tries to fucking label me. I don't care, because I know exactly who I am and what I stand for, and we know on this show what we stand for. But I can see that coming. I don't know why. And our liberal brothers and sisters on the left, and our conservative brothers and sisters on the right, we need to come together to stomp this evil out, because it is evil. This is communism. This is oppression. This is hatred that's slowly growing in our communities, and it will take over if we don't act on it. That's how I feel.
Exactly. I agree. We need to basically come to terms with the fact that we're all people. We're all humans. You know, I feel hate in my heart sometimes, and I regret it the next day, because I'm like, you know what? They're just people. They're misguided. I don't want to hate these people. I don't want to hit these people. I don't even want.
It's so easy to get worked up by
it's
them.
so easy. But that's what they want. They want you to lash out. Everything's optics. Remember, everything's being recorded. Everyone has smartphones with high-def cameras. You know, nothing that goes on these very highly publicized rallies is not documented. And so it's very, very dangerous for anybody to just assume that they can go out there and commit violence, which is why, hence, they use, you know, baklavas and face cover, because, I mean, there was posts out of Boston, you know, Antifa saying, beware, they've posted new cameras in the Commons, keep out of sight. And it's like, law-abiding protesters don't have to worry about cameras.
You don't have to put masks on. Yeah, you don't have to hide your identity in order to go out and legally, peacefully protest. Which is, so, coming up here, you got rallies that are planned. Can you tell us when those rallies are happening? And then also, I really want to know from you, for all of us that are listening and all the people who will be at that rally, I'll be at that rally.
Yep.
I know Will. We're going to be there, and we're going to be showing out for the podcast and for freedom of speech, and we're going to be supporting you. How should people act or react to the blatant, assaults and violence and everything that are enacted by Antifa. Can you tell us, just let us know and let everybody out there know, what do we need to do while we're at your rally?
Yeah. So I'll tell you what. So there's 3 different kinds of people out there. All of them are brave, right? So there's 3 people that come out to these rallies where they know there's a high chance of violence, but all of them are brave. There's the people who show up, but they don't want to get hurt, but they're willing to take the risk because they have things that are more important to them than their own safety. Okay, so those people will always be safe because here's the one thing about Antifa. They are so sidetracked. The protesters, they cannot split up. They always are like, it's just like, here's my enemy, I'm going to go after this. It's like the front line. So there's always safe spots to be. Always. You stay in the back, you'll be fine, okay? No, that's the first. No, number 2, there's people who go and they just want to fight. And I don't blame them. They're pissed off. They're angry. They feel like they just want to beat up Antifa and chase them out of town. That's basically the same mentality that Antifa has, right?
Right.
They just want to beat people out of town, all right?
And that's why, in a way I'm coming from there, as a self-defense kind of a way, and as I can't stand what these people are for, and I just want to stomp them out and get them out of here, but that's not going to work.
Right. And most of those people, they're not going to throw the first punch 99% of the time. It's like as soon as they start, they're just waiting for any excuse. You know what I mean? And so, yes, and I will never, ever make someone feel bad for protecting themselves, for protecting other people. You know what I mean? Like morally, there's nothing wrong with that. Strategically, there's an issue. There's the third group who are growing right now. They're growing and they feel Patriot Prayer. They feel what I'm saying, and they understand. They're willing to put themselves on the front line and to take a hit and to not fight back, because at the end of the day, we understand that we want the world to see how evil Antifa is and how hypocritical they are. They say they're there to fight against hate. If they're there to fight against hate, then they're not going to punch innocent people. You know what I mean? And so the goal is September 10th, we're going to have a lot of people in the front line that's going to protect the crowd. And they're going to be there. They're willing to take a punch. They're willing to take a hit, and they're not going to fight back. And we're going to get all of that on video. And I know that the liberals are already putting pressure at Antifa as it is. You know what I mean? They're already starting to get my message. They understand that I'm preaching love, I'm preaching peace, and they understand that Antifa preaches hate and violence. And so any good liberal is going to be like, who do I want which one of these groups would I rather be in charge of my kids? You know what I mean?
Right.
The group who's preaching about love and peace, or the group who's just like, I'm going to take your job. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm going to take your job. I'm going to beat you up.
I'm going to get you fired.
I'm going to fucking find you. You're going to fucking kill you, motherfucker. Yeah.
I thought one of the coolest people that showed up to the rally was that really short, long, wispy-haired, kind of just hippie chick, but she was so rad. She had like the pamphlets to hand out with the Revolution thing. She's like a Ron Paul libertarian kind of.
She's a Ron Paul,
That lady was great. I had a great long conversation with her. She was a little wild, she towards the end.
She's crazy.
Oh, she's nuts.
She's crazy, but she's a great person. Yeah,
she is.
Absolutely.
I could tell so much love and kindness coming from her. And she was great because she got a lot of media coverage. There was a lot of video optics on her, and as well as 30-second spoken word interviews where she basically said, I'm gonna be down here at these rallies. They're gonna get used to me being here. I'm gonna be on the free speech side. She's like, I'm going to stand up to these people who want to limit our free speech. I'm just going to be here to show faith and show force. And I just thought people like that, you know what? Those are those moderate and or even far left liberals that are just like, we're done. We're done with intimidation. And I noticed in Lake O when that event went down, the march, there was so many people over the age of 60 with LO stands for love, and it was more of a flower child protest. I had no problem with those people, but I got a little offended when they decided to stand behind Antifa and the Black Bloc, when they decided to block the parade route on the steps in that courtyard area. I realized they're not only afraid of Antifa, but they're willing to stand behind them and not denounce them publicly because they truly think we have shared goals. But I think as each event transpires and no real Nazis show up, no real hate speech is spewed from our side, they realize we just want a voice too. We just want a seat at the table. and we have opinions that they share, which is nonviolent, peaceful, free speech protests, which everyone has a right to in this country. And if we lose that right, they know that they'll come for them just like they would for us. And that's basically my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, Antifa, in my opinion, is the biggest hate group in the country, and we don't advocate for anybody, especially. But yeah, Antifa, and I just don't understand why people don't see that. So their title is Antifa, anti-fascist, but they are completely, in my opinion, 100%. Domestic terrorist, and also
sign the petition.
Huge hate group.
There's a petition now.
Yeah. So anyway.
Well, I've built some a coalition with a couple groups. Some groups who are like they're liberal, socialist, and they kind of believe the media, so they think that I do have ties to hate groups, or they do think that maybe sometimes Joey has hate speech and maybe he's afraid to speak out against it. So they don't understand how consistent I've been, right? Like they'll see a couple of my videos and be like, oh, yeah, I can work with this guy, but they believe the media like, oh, Joey has a history of spewing out hate speech. And so it's funny, like, I probably shouldn't be saying this, but, like, I'm building this relationship with these groups who are like, I'm going to convince Joey to be against hate speech and to speak it out against hate groups, you know what I mean? So like, I'm going to participate in like changing Joey, but part of the deal is they have to speak out against hate speech too, and speak out against these hate groups. And it's funny because I've consistently like done that. Like I will always speak out against hate speech. I'll speak out against hate. Period. Wherever it comes from, any form.
Right.
And so now I'm putting these groups in a position where like, if they're going to honor their agreement, they're going to speak out against Antifa. They're going to speak out against this hate speech. They're going to speak out against these threats of violence or violence that they use. You know what I mean? Because they think that for some reason, like I'm afraid to do that, but I'm not. I've been doing it forever. I'm just going to stand up for what's right. That's it. Right, left. That's the beauty about what I do and where I'm from. I don't care I understand that evil people exist all around us. Left, right, middle. It doesn't matter. So just stand up for what's right. Just stand up against the evil. Stand up for what's good. And then you don't have to play politics. You don't have to worry about anything.
Right, because when they try to
be a good person.
Yeah, when they try to pull you into the political spectrum, that's like a tricky, you know what I mean? That's a whole really tricky platform for you. Because like you're saying, there's different groups that are trying to attach themselves onto it. And in my opinion, the Antifa are pushing people towards the far right, which is really frightening, Yeah. It's because they might look at the guys who would go up against Antifa on the far right or whatever racial area they're coming from as, kind of like protectors and heroes. And what you're saying is, no, it's love. It's respect. We're going to stand up to these guys, but we're not going to do it in a violent manner. And I think one of the hardest possible things to do is to sit there and take that punch.
Yep.
And to take that abuse. Yep. And to look at them and say, brother, I love you. And that's coming from a Christian standpoint. And we're not like a Christian podcast, and we're not, I'm a Christian, but, Will's not religious, or whatever. It's just not what he subscribes to. But we still appreciate each other's points of views. And man, I'll tell you what, I will do my best to try and be at that rally, or I will be at that rally, but I'm not saying
not your best.
Not the best, but I was going to say
there, yeah.
I will do the best I can to be on the front lines, because for a guy like me, like I look for battle, like if I, you know what I mean, I
in a positive way.
In a positive way. I've always, I've always been that kind of guy I got bullied a lot when I grew up. I was fat. I was a fat kid. And if I see bullies out there trying to pick on anybody and do anything violent to somebody who can't stand up for whatever reason, I'm there. My sons have been brought up the exact same way. My youngest son got bullied a lot as well until he stood up and fought back for himself. So kind of my defense mechanism and my trigger is that if I see a bully and I see them trying to pick on somebody who cannot defend themselves or who's innocent, I want to go in there and I want to stomp them out. But I have to suppress that and that anger and that whatever rage, because I know Antifa is like the ultimate bully. But for a strategic avenue, you're right. I mean, I want to be there. I want to help out and to take a punch, to take a racial slur, or to take any kind of profanity thrown at me or whatever, and not throw a punch back will be probably the hardest thing I've ever had to do.
Yep. Yeah. And I mean,
well, hey guys, I gotta. I'm sorry to interrupt. I gotta go, but
me too.
I can just say this last message. This last thing before I go, I just want all of Portland to know no matter how much people want to make you average liberals believe that I'm your enemy and I'm extreme right, it's not true. If anything, I know that Portland will always be liberal, and there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, Portland can be whatever it wants. I just want to get rid of the intolerance. I want to get rid of the hate. I want to get rid of the threats. And I know that there's so many good liberals in Portland who just want what's good for their city, and they're afraid to stand up. They're afraid to stand against Antifa. If anything, if we can all work together to get rid of Antifa, to make them insignificant, because that's all they really are. They're just a bunch of insignificant children who cannot inspire, they can't motivate, they can't speak, they won't even show their faces. They have nothing but fear. So let's expose them for who they are. And I'm willing to work with anybody, doesn't matter who you are, to get these kids out of the town.
And get them help, honestly. I think they just need some help and guidance in a positive, constructive way, because a lot of these kids are just a product of the liberal education system that's told them, you're a product of your environment. If your environment sucks, you suck, and there's nothing you can do about it. Why don't you get on food stamps and welfare? I mean, that's just kind of...
Well, I think they're,
it's a defeatist attitude. It's a defeatist, angry position they come from.
Right.
But you have to call them out.
You have to.
It doesn't matter. You have to call them out.
Yep, agreed.
That's it. You call them out. You show them the light. You whatever. That's how you make them insignificant. You show them the light. Show them something better, because Antifa has nothing to offer these kids except they just offer them something that they think, food, money, whatever, family.
A lot of them are drug addicts, man. A lot of them are just drug addicts, unfortunately.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's show them love, strength, courage, all light, all these things that they're not used to.
And humor.
But
and
more
fun.
than anything, you have to take away their moral high ground by calling them out. You have to. So.
Amen, brother. We appreciate you being on the show.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you being on the show so much. Hopefully we'll talk to you in the future again. And thank you again for being on Weapons Grade Radio, brother. And we'll see you at the rally coming up here.
Sounds great. Feel free to reach out anytime.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that, man.
Best of luck in San Francisco, brother.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.